Kyle Hightower joining me now, talking a little bit of Patriots here. I know the regular season is still a couple months away, mini camps in the rearview mirror, but the Patriots kind of getting an idea and their fan base of what they might have for next year. How do you assess how good the Patriots are, Kyle, based on what you've seen, who they've drafted, and where we are in the offseason?
I think it's been a weird offseason for the Patriots. We got our first kind of peeks at them in OTAs, voluntary OTAs, and then the mandatory minicamp. And of course, the thing that stands out that Patriot fans are going to be excited about is Mac Jones. Has had an outstanding offseason. It looks like he's gotten bigger, he's gotten stronger, he's a lot more confident throwing the ball. He's taken ownership of this team. Even though, again, guys in their shorts and helmets, it's kind of hard to get a full view of what to expect. But just that little snapshot, you can see that Mac Jones he's looked at last year. He wants to come in and take ownership of this team, and he has in the short, the short glimpse we've seen of him thus far. I think there are a lot of questions, though. I mean, Josh McDaniels leaving in the offseason has left a big hole there as far as who's going to help Mac Jones develop in this system. It's going to be a brand new system probably under whoever is going to be called in place, because Bill Belichick hasn't told us or gave it any idea of who that's going to be. You bring back Joe Judge after he left, and his dismissal from the New York Giants. You bring back in Matt Patricia, who's now been in the fold for a few years now since he left Detroit. Both those guys have worked a little bit with the offense and with Jones. It's probably going to be Joe Judge's show, but again, no established play caller there or leader of offensive coordinator being named there is something to watch. On defense, lots of holes there still. On the defensive side of the ball, who's going to be their support there at linebacker? They have a lot of young guys there, but no true veterans now in the mix anymore. And same thing in the secondary, following their decision to let J.C. Jackson leave. So lots of questions for the Patriots, going into training camp. But I think the biggest piece that you have Mac Jones, who's had a great offseason, is great news for the Patriots, and something I think fans will be very excited about as we inch toward training camp.
How long can Bill Belichick wait before, officially cementing a support system around Mac Jones to help him in his continued development? Or is it a situation where those pieces are likely already in place behind the scenes, but just haven't been made public yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one thing I've learned in covering this team is that Bill Belichick does things on his own time. A few years ago when the Patriots what they were going to do in the offseason, he surprised everybody by opening up the pocketbook and spending lots of money. When you thought the Patriots would go reach high in the draft and try to grab one of the top two rated guys, a quarterback to kind of succeed, finally named successor to Tom Brady. He waited, didn't do a thing, and just let Mac Jones fall in his lap. So I think the one thing you've learned about this Patriots team is they're going to surprise. And as far as the window, as far as developing around Mac Jones, I think that's going to happen, in front of the cameras, in front of us, whenever Bill Belichick wants to let it out. I do think Joe Judge is working closely with him. It's kind of been the guy tapped to kind of lead that development for Mac. But again, until something's official, it's kind of hard to guess what's going on, behind that. In the shadows behind that veil that is the Patriots complex.
I know a lot of Patriots fans were so excited to see, just improvements in the passing game overall after Cam Newton welcoming in Mac Jones. And I know it's a little rocky, especially with a young kid that's continuing to develop physically and also kind of getting the playbook underneath him. And that this step into, this next season could potentially be huge just based on experience, but when you analyze the offense and what he brings to the passing game, some fans I was reading were pointing to improvements that need to be made in the play action game. Where specifically offensively do you think Mac Jones needs to be better this season for the team?
Well, I think he did exactly what they wanted him to do in the passing game in year one. Those short kind of intermediate throws, keep the team on pace, kind of manage the offense. If he's going to make that next leap, he's got to throw the ball downfield. They've got some guys, in the mix now, who can kind of stretch the field. Trey Nixon had a wonderful, mandatory mini camp. And it showed as a guy who could kind of stretch the field. They brought in Devontae Parker, a guy who's been in the division. You see what he can do down in Miami. Now he's there. Guys who are going to go deep and look for the ball. And Mac Jones has got to be able to deliver it to them if this team is going to take the next step offensively. Again, what he's shown thus far in the little snippets we've seen is a guy who knows that. who's been told that and is making his best effort to do that. So far during the offseason, but that's got to develop more and develop faster as the Patriots get closer to the 2022 season.
And just lastly, Kyle, on the defensive side of the ball, where would you say is the most glaring weakness at this point?
I think it's in the secondary. Actually, I mentioned the linebackers earlier, but I think the secondary, who's going to be paired there with Jalen Mills at cornerback is the biggest question mark I have. There are obviously financial decisions that the Patriots made in letting J.C. Jackson, walk out of the building in free agency. But there's not a lot there, at least in-house thus far, to kind of replace him. You have veterans like Terrence Mitchell, who they brought in, who's there. You have some guys, who kind of holdovers, who are young guys in the draft. But no real clear. Malcolm Butler is a guy who they brought back, of Patriot lore, who of course everybody knows who's back. He's taken a year off. We don't know what he's got left in the tank. So just no clear kind of successor to J.C. Jackson is a big question mark, especially in a loaded AFC where the ball's going to be flying around the field. You're going to need guys on the back end to really defend and really help things out, help the front of the defense out if this team's going to be able to compete and make the playoffs again this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I lied because I said that was the last one. But I was thinking about the conference, as you mentioned, an absolutely loaded AFC, and thinking about the division as well. It is just stacked. What do you think is possible for this team? A lot of people just look at Bill Belichick and the group that they have and say, well, no matter what, they're going to figure out a way to win at least 8 games or something like that. But this is going to be really, really challenging for the Patriots defensively when you consider who else is in the AFC. What do you forecast for them early on for how many games they win or whether they could potentially, like you say, even make a playoff run?
It's going to be tight. The extra, the 17th game it's big because it's kind of that wild card game that you kind of maybe steal early in the season from a game you're not supposed to win, you're not projected to win, and that's going to help you out later in the regular season to kind of sneak into the playoffs. But the AFC East by itself is a much different division. The Buffalo Bills are loaded. They showed last year. With Josh Allen, this guy is he's ready to make that next step. He has in a lot of ways taken that next step already. The Bills aren't going anywhere. The Miami Dolphins, had a fantastic offseason. They've added several pieces there. It's a matter of how much or how well Tua Tagovailoa is able to utilize them. But so there's no longer any gimme wins. That's what I'm trying to say in the AFC East. And if you lose, if you struggle in your own division, it doesn't bode well for you. Trying to rely on your out of division games to kind of run the table there and make the playoffs. So how well they play in those early division games, which are some kind of front loaded this season, is going to have a lot to determine or go a long way in determining if this Patriots team is back in the postseason.
Yeah, the days of that cushy division, I think, are far behind the Patriots, and they've got some work to do this season for sure. Kyle Hightower, thank you so much, as always, for being with me.
Always a great time, Carolyn. Thanks.